And welcome back to the David67 Celtic News YouTube channel. This Saturday lunchtime video is going to be a preview of the Celtic against Hibs game at Easter Road, Edinburgh, roughly 24 hours from now at 12 noon kickoff. Game will be live on Sky Sports, and it's a game which pits the current third place team Hibs against the current second place team Celtic, and depending on how Hearts' game goes later on this afternoon, it could give Celtic a chance to even more narrow the gap between Hearts and Celtic at the top of the table, which currently lies at 4 points, with Celtic having a game in hand. Currently, Celtic are 5 points ahead of Hibs, and Celtic obviously tons and tons of momentum from that brilliant win against Feyenoord Rotterdam a couple of days ago on Thursday evening. And tomorrow's game against Hibs, thought to be Martin O'Neill's last game as the interim caretaker manager of Celtic before he hands over to Wilfred Nancy. Still no confirmation that Wilfred Nancy has been appointed as the new Celtic head coach manager, and no confirmation as to how many of his current Columbus Crew staff he's bringing with him and how many of the existing Celtic coaches will stay after Nancy is appointed, as is expected in the next 24-48 hours. It's certainly expected that Nancy will be in charge for next Wednesday's game against Dundee, which could, in theory, give Celtic the chance to go top of the table if all things go well over this weekend. Martin O'Neill did a Friday afternoon press conference, so I am assuming that he's not going to be doing a press conference today, and so I'm basing all the predicted scores and predicted lineups, etc., on the basis of what O'Neill said yesterday in the Friday afternoon press conference, although the only new fitness issue is a possibility that Colby Donovan might be out due to having his foot stamped on in the Feyenoord match on Thursday. However, O'Neill was positive about Donovan's chances of playing on Sunday and said it had significantly improved overnight already, and was confident that Donovan should be fit to play, and confirmed that Marcello Sirachi will be in the matchday squad, and it would also be assumed that Kelechi Iheanacho, who was fit to be on the bench on Thursday, would be expected that he's made a couple of days more improvement and should be again fit to be on the bench for the game against Hibs on Sunday. In this press conference, otherwise, Martin O'Neill didn't really say anything of any great import. He was much more happy and jovial, much more his usual self, and was indicating that his expectation is the game against Hibs will be his last game, and then he can go back to his punditry jobs on radio and television, but did seem open to keeping in contact with Celtic, although all the speculation about him taking over as a chief executive officer or chairman of the board or director of football, all of those do seem rather far-fetched. No other news from Martin O'Neill's press conference, and so based on how things are expected to be, my predicted lineup tomorrow for the game against Hibs: Schmeichel in goals, at right back Colby Donovan. However, if he is found to be unfit on Sunday morning, then Anthony Ralston obviously would come in to replace him. I think the other three in the back four will stay the same: Trusty, Scales and Tierney, although this time there will be the option of bringing Sirachi off the bench rather than swapping Scales across. Midfield, I think, again will be Engels, Hatate and McGregor, with Engels and McGregor being a sort of double pivot, box-to-box midfielder role, and Hatate slightly in front of them. I think, again, he's going to go for Luke McCowan at the right wing stroke central midfielder role, with Yang as a conventional left winger, Mayer through the middle, although personally I would, instead of going for McCowan, use Benjamin Negrin as that a sort of a hybrid attacking midfielder, right winger, second striker role, which he has actually done on several occasions for Celtic and often come through with goals. And I personally think against Hibs, if we do have Engels, Hatate and McGregor behind him as conventional central midfielders, I think there then is the capacity to use Negrin in a hybrid role with Donovan and Engels providing some width down the right hand side, and also using the pace of Maeda through the middle and having Yang and the midfielders and Negrin all joining Maeda in the box to score goals. Now, looking at some stats for the Celtic against Hibs game. In the last 10 Celtic against Hibs games, Celtic have 7 wins, 1 defeat and 2 draws. That defeat being back in February of 2025, the rather controversial game where Celtic went 2-0 down by half time, came back with a goal in the second half by Dyson Maeda and scored a perfectly legitimate equaliser in the 83rd minute. However, the VAR ref decided that he could categorically say that Alistair Johnston's cross from the byline was out, with both the referee and the assistant referee, who was perfectly placed, saying the ball was still in play. However, in a decision that cost the VAR referee in the end his job, he decided that he can't categorically, even though he was from the wrong angle with no camera shooting down the line, was able to say that the ball was completely out of play, and what's more, the overhanging edge of the ball was also completely out of play. In 2024-25 season, Celtic played Hibs a total of 6 times altogether, beating them in the Cup, beating them in the Scottish League Cup, winning 3 of the 4 Scottish Premiership games, with that only defeat being in February. And Celtic have played Hibs 1 time in the 25-26 season. That was a rather boring 0-0 draw, where Kelechi Iheanacho unfortunately had a goal disallowed, and Celtic huffed and puffed and had lots of pressure, lots of possession, lots of shots, but no real endangerment of the Hibs goal. Looking at Celtic against Hibs head-to-head, Celtic have 68 wins, 27 draws and 12 defeats. In the last 5 games, Celtic have 4 wins and 1 defeat, with that defeat being to Midtjylland, otherwise winning against Rangers in the League Cup and winning their other league matches. Hibs in less good form at the moment in their last 5 games, all of which have obviously been in Scotland. They have 2 wins, 2 defeats and 1 draw, drawing against Livingston and losing to Rangers, and in their last game losing to Motherwell. Hibs, however, do actually have a very, very good home record in the Scottish Premiership, in the league. In their last 18 league games, they have 11 wins, 6 draws and only 1 defeat. That defeat was to Rangers in October 2025, a 1-0 loss for them. Celtic going to Hibs actually is a bit of a bogey ground for Celtic. Celtic have only won 27% of their games against Hibs at Easter Road, Edinburgh, since the 27-2018 season, with only 4 wins out of those 15 games. And that's actually Celtic's poorest record in those 8 years against any other Scottish League side. And finally, another interesting stat, although Celtic have at times been struggling for form and struggling for goals, they have actually scored 3 goals in the 90th minute or later to win games, which currently is actually level with Hearts. And that's only 2 behind the all-time record in Scottish football, which is 5, which Rangers achieved in the 2016-2017 season. Very, very hopeful, however, that Celtic will win the game and score some goals before that and not have to rely on a 90th minute or added time goal. Although if that's what it takes to win, I'll be more than delighted if that's the case in Martin O'Neill's likely last game as the caretaker manager. Looking at the various different football sites, sports sites, Celtic fan sites, nothing very concrete or definite in terms of news. Still waiting for confirmation of Wilfred Nancy coming to Celtic. And in other stories and rumours, there is a suggestion that Wilfred Nancy might look to recall Luis Palma from Lech Poznan, where he's been playing very, very well in an attacking midfielder role, kind of playing as behind a main striker, as a free role attacking midfielder, second striker, able to go wide and go through the middle and drop back into central midfield. And the other person that there's some speculation that he might recall in January is Mike Nawrocki, our centre back, who's currently on loan in Germany with Hanover. Nawrocki not had terribly much game time over in Hanover, and given the fact that Nancy does prefer to play with three centre-backs, it would make good sense to recall, if it was possible, Nawrocki and or Welsh, who's doing well at Motherwell on loan this season. And again, as Nancy's main tactics and formations often involves having two roving attacking midfielders behind the main striker in front of a midfield four. It might make a lot of sense also to recall Luis Palma, as he has played in that role very, very successfully all season for Lech Poznan in Poland, with lots of goals and lots of assists over there. Nothing else definite or concrete, and lots of stories regarding possible targets Celtic may have in January, possible targets that Wilfred Nancy has already got the scouting and recruiting people to make inquiries about, and so we'll see how all that pans out over the next couple of months. And to finish off, just a wee polite suggestion, encouragement for those not yet subscribed to the channel, please do click that subscriber button, keep the numbers pushing up towards 1500, which would be a brilliant Christmas present for me and the channel. And as always, do pop your thoughts, comments into the comment section, particularly predictions of the lineup and predictions of the score. And finally, my prediction of the score for tomorrow's game is that Celtic are going to win 2-0. Hopefully a nice early goal in the first half hour, then doubling up early in the second half, and then allowing us to make one or two wee resting and rotation type things, get a bit of game time for Strachey and for Iheanacho and a couple of others, so that players like maybe Tierney, McGregor, Maeda, etc. might get a wee bit of a rest before the game against Dundee on Wednesday, which might prove to be Wilfred Nancy's first game as the new Celtic head coach manager. And so until the next video, which is likely to be some form of Celtic v Hibs post-match review, likely early on Monday. Until then, good luck Celtic in beating Hibs tomorrow at 12 noon in Edinburgh. And so good luck Celtic, and goodbye, and hail hail.